Welcome back to the LarryB YouTube channel. In today's class, we're going to learn how to make this beautiful spiral flounce crinoline sleeve. A continuous spiral sleeve, as you can see, and it's really beautiful and easy to make. This is what it looks like on the side, and this is what the back of the sleeve looks like. This is something you would like to learn. Kindly stay tuned to the end of this video. Thank you. We'll start making the sleeve by creating a spiral flounce. Okay, so I'm going to be using crinoline for this. This is a very short crinoline, so when you're making yours, I don't advise that you work with this, especially if the width of your flounce is going to be big. So for this, I'm just going to double it. Okay, I'm going to use two of it like this instead of one, because this is very short and tiny. So to make your flounce, I'm cutting the lining and the main fabric together. It's easier that way, and because of the nature of the flounce, it's like scallops like this, so both sides will show. That's why I'm making use of the same fabric. So I just sewed it on each other. So what you just need to do is to partition your fabric into four like this. You draw a straight line like this, and then you draw another one vertically. So the center point here is going to be your starting point. So to start, you're going to mark 1 inch all around first. I hope my chalk is visible. So you're going to mark 1 inch all around the box. You can see I'm marking it, and then you try to make it into a circle. Okay, so next one, you start marking the width that you want for your 1 inch. Is not the actual width that I want for this flounce. Okay, so I'm marking 1 inch first, then from that 1 inch I'm going to start marking the actual width that I want, which is 3 inches. So here I'm marking 3 inches. I'm marking 3 inches here as well. You can match on this part as well, so that you can have something uniform. So I'm marking 3 inches, and I'm going to link it to the 1 inch that I started with. So I marked like this. So here I'm just going to link it to the 3 inches, which is going to be my actual measurement. I hope you get that. So from there now, we'll start marking 3 inches. Start marking 3 inches all around. I have a tutorial on this already, so if you don't understand this, you can check that tutorial out. So what I'm marking now is 3 inches. From where the first line stops, you mark 3 inches, and then you connect. So you can see I'm placing it, and then I'm going to mark the 3 inches and connect. So that is how I'm going to do till I fill up the entire space that I have. So you just keep marking. You can see that I'm almost at the end point now, and I'm still marking it all around 3 inches. That's what I'm marking all around. So you mark it till you get to a point where you no longer have up to 3 inches, and then you are going to stop here. You can see that from this point now, I can no longer get 3 inches. So I'm going to stop marking here. This is where my flounce is going to stop. Okay, I hope the markings are visible, so you can see how the spiral effects are coming along. So before I cut it out, I just want to use my pins to hold it together at strategic points, so that I'll just have, it's not compulsory, I just want to make sure that the lining and the main fabric are staying together. That's why I'm holding them with pins like this. Once you are done pinning everything like this, you just take your scissors and then start cutting around it, following the lines that you have. So you can first cut out the excess first, the ones that are not up to 3 inches. So those ones are not part of the flounce, so I'm cutting them out first before I start cutting my actual flounce. So you can see how I'm cutting it. You will see that those parts I don't have my chalk on them. So here is my starting point for the flounce. All the ones I have cut earlier are not necessary, so this is where I'll start cutting the flounce. So from here now, you just follow the lines that you have drawn, and then you're going to start cutting around it. So this is going to give you a continuous flounce. It's just going to be one single fabric. It's not going to have any joining. So you keep cutting around it like this. You can see, keep cutting around it till you cut to the end. So like I said, I'm adding crinoline to this to give it structure. You can also iron a gum stay to it. So if you're ironing a gum stay to this, make sure that you iron the gum stay on the fabric first before you cut the flounce. It's not going to be easy for you to add your interfacing to the fabric after you have cut out the flounce. So if you're adding any interfacing to this, you iron it on the fabric first before you go ahead to cut out your spiral flounce. So now we are at the end point of the flounce. I'm just going to cut off the excess that I don't need. So this is what my flounce looks like. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to go ahead and attach my my crinoline. Like I said, this is not the ideal size to use. Of course, you can see that it is shorter than what we have. So there are different sizes of crinoline. If you are working with a 3 inches flounce like this, you should use at least a 2 inches width of crinoline. This is just 1 inch. Okay, you can see this is just 1 inch. So what I'm going to do now is to sort of double it. Okay, so I want to use my hemming gum to add it to the lining. So what I want to do is now is to place my hemming gum under it, and then I'll use my hot iron to glue them together. So when I'm doing this, I'll make sure that it does not get into my seam allowance. This is because if you sew on the crinoline and turn together, it's going to, because of the nature of the crinoline, it's kind of bouncy. It's not going to be so easy for you to turn together with your fabric. So what I want to do now is to add it to my lining alone separately. So once I use my hemming gum to glue it, it's going to stick to it. You can also detach your lining and go ahead to sew the crinoline to the lining first. Okay, when you sew it to the lining, it's not going to show on the main fabric. So you can sew it to the lining first, then after sewing it to the lining, you will now place the lining on your main fabric and then sew on the seam allowance. So that way when you turn it out, the crinoline will not be inside the seam allowance, so it's not going to be giving you that struggle to turn. So what I'm going to do now is to bring my hot iron now and use my crinoline to, I use that to attach my crinoline with my hemming gum. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead now and start gumming them together. This is the iron I'm working with. So because this part is always sharp, I just got a small piece of my stay, and then I'm going to be ironing it on that part so that it can reduce it. So if you, after you put it like this and you feel that a layer is not going to be enough to do that, you're going to glue another layer to it till you are okay with what you have. So now, after gluing it, the next thing is to start gluing this to our fabric. So like I said, I'm going to place my hemming gum under, and then I'll place the crinoline on it. So when I'm placing my crinoline, I make sure that it does not get to where I intend to sew, because I don't want to sew the crinoline together with I don't want to sew the crinoline together with with the the fabric. So you can see where I'm placing it. I'm using a steam iron so that it can make my work easier. You can see that it just sticks to it like that. So that is how I'm going to iron this on every part, leaving that part. Crinoline is kind of elastic, so it's going to bend as you are bending it. So when I'm done with this layer, I'm going to place another one immediately after this, and then gum it to it so that it can be wider for me to cover enough space on this flounce. I'm done attaching the first one. You can see that it is glued now. So like I was saying, if you don't want to glue it, you can go ahead and just sew it on the lower part and the upper part to hold it together, okay, on the lining, not the main fabric. But I don't want to have seams there. That was why I used my hemming gum. So because my hemming gum is short, where the first one stops, just right where this one stops, I'm going to go ahead now and glue the second layer on it like this. So you can see now that I have more coverage with my hemming gum. So I'll go ahead to do that now. I have gone ahead to glue two the two crinoline together. So what I'm going to do now is to take it to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew it on the hem so that I can flip and turn. So when you are sewing, make sure you don't get to your crinoline so that you can turn it easily. So I'll go ahead and go and run a stitch here, then I'm going to flip it and iron. I have sewn it round, so you can notch it if you want because it's curved. So what I'm going to do next is to flip to the right side, and then I'm going to iron it now. So once you flip it, you can see how it is laying even without ironing. That's because the seam, we did not let the sewing get to the hemming gum, the crinoline area. So you can see how it is lying well. Okay, so if you let it get to your crinoline, because of the way the crinoline is, it may be pulling the fabric and it won't allow it to lay very well like this. That was why I made sure to apply my crinoline separately to the lining before turning the fabric with the lining. So if you don't have an hemming gum, you can also sew on it separately to the lining. Just make sure when you are sewing the lining to the fabric, you leave out the crinoline part and just sew fabric to fabric. So now I'm just going to go ahead and further iron it down, and then I'll start arranging it on this sleeve. So this is what the flounce looks like now. Before I go to iron it, let me just explain what I'm going to do. So I'm going to be fleecing this on. It's like an hanging sleeve. So this is going to be like my basic sleeve that's going to be under. So you need to measure the space that your armhole, from your armhole to the next armhole, that space where you're going to be fixing. By the time we fix it on the mannequin, you will see you can measure that part. So that's going to be your width. So depending on how high you want the flounce effect to be, it's going to be your height. But for this tutorial, I'm working with around 4 to 4.5 inches on fold. So I just run a stitch here so that I can flip and turn it. So once you turn it out, this is what you're going to have, and then you're going to iron it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead now and iron this. So this is what I will have. So after ironing this, on this upper part, you can go ahead and serge it so that you have something neat. Okay, you can serge this part so that you can have something neat. So after doing that, we'll just start laying it over the base that we have here. So we're going to start sewing it like this. Okay, you can see I'm going to sew it down. So this is the concept of what we are going for. So I'll go ahead and iron it now. I'm done ironing now. You can see what it looks like. So I'll start creating the scallops. You can actually mark on it. You leave space that you're going to use to sew it to your dress. So you can make markings on how you are going to follow the scallops, or you can just do it as you're ironing. So you start sewing from here. You can start sewing from here. you will sew. The crinoline is going to help it to stand like this. So once you sew, you're going to continue sewing, you're going to turn and sew on the next one, so you leave space. So that was why I said you can mark on it as a guide, and then you can do it as you go. So you sew and continue like this till you fill up the whole space that you need. So I'll go ahead and sew this now and bring it back to show you what we have. Done sewing it now, and you can see that I made them very close to each other. So if you made it close like this, you will need more fabric. If you don't want to use so much fabric, you can make it maybe 1 inch apart, so that you cover more ground with less fabric. So this is what it looks like on the wrong side. So here you can just tack it to your sleeve, or you can just create an armhole and sew it to the armhole of your sleeve from here. So if you're tacking it, make sure that it is neat. You can see how I'm folding in the seam allowance. You make sure that it is neat on those sides, and then you're going to tack it from one end to the other. So I'm going to take it to the mannequin now so that you can see what it looks like. This is what we have. I just tacked it to this cloth. So you just tack it to your outfit like that. You can see the spiral effect that we have there. Like I said, I want mine to be very full, so I made it full. You don't want yours to be this full, you just need to scatter it so that the spaces will be opened. So I'm going to turn it now so that we can see what it looks like on the back. And this is the back as well. You can see that we have the spiral continuous. I hope you enjoyed making this beautiful tutorial with me. If you enjoyed it, let us in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel. I'll see you in the next one.